This is a practice of rough assembly. We are making a work named Mapeo de Bordes Porosos. It takes 13 hours on an aeroplane to assemble our trio together, so when we meet, always at least one of us is drenched with jet lag, the distance across the Pacific Ocean quite evident in an altered state. The interior of the body has yet to catch up with the blood and nerves and skin. We are tender with each other in reorientation. Sometimes we become hysterical and laugh so hard we can't eat the food before us, even though we are terrifically hungry. Sometimes we fall asleep mid-rehearsal. One time in Auckland, Alys is very frustrated because she can't even communicate the problem of how to rig the projector through the exhaustion that teems in the organs and bones, let alone resolve the problem, and yet somehow we resolve the problem. Somehow we find out how to listen to each other. Somehow we swim through the impossibility of continuing to work. Somehow we find the right kind of tin foil to black out the studio windows and wake up in time to gaffer tape it on. This is a practice of reaching across distance. This is a practice of rough translation, close translation, and bad translation and touch. This is a drawing practice and a moving practice and a talking practice and an installation that is written with film and chalk and movement and conversation and microphones and water and space and time and destabilized worlds and the fact of our misunderstanding each other. These process notes were written out of the artistic research project Mapeo de Bordes Porosos. As artists, Maximo, myself and dance artist Macarena Campbell-Parra met through the Sur-Sur, South-South project at Museum of Contemporary Art Santiago in 2017, when curator Marisol Vargas invited us to participate in an installation merging visual art and choreography. This led to a series of projects over 4 years. Our core principles were developing porous boundaries between creative disciplines, points of connection across Pacific ontologies that question the idea of the nation-state, creative experiments, critical discussions, tactics for decolonizing, and spaces of translation and mistranslation as creative strategies. So we worked in many different spaces in Chile and in Aotearoa, New Zealand, from beachside marae settings with Māori activist communities in Auckland to the Museum of Memory and Human Rights and the Museum of Contemporary Arts in Santiago, to site-based work at my Santiago apartment building and surrounding streets when the art spaces in Chile were closed due to military response to mass uprisings. We see our work as continuing to unfold in an iterative, process-based way, responsive to its sites of inhabitation, which nowadays are the insides of our houses. As an international project developed by 3 professional artists and parents, we have limited time together in developing work. So we've embraced the idea of rough assembly, where the architecture of the work is assembled in parts. Films made by Maximo from his recent exhibition, texts written and pre-recorded by me, and Macarena and myself thinking about performance scores and physical states in the months ahead to our meeting, through which I'd organise a dramaturgy of sequences which can then be shifted and written in the days of collaboration. And often we'd have maybe 3 or 4 part-time days before we showed our work, if that. So very, very short rehearsal periods before the work was put together, but really careful thinking of the process, the structure of the piece, leading up to our flying in together. We sense into the edges where surfaces and boundary lines are etched. There are these deeply interior territories. There are these lines drawn, delimiting nation states. There are vibrant molecular bodies entangled with each other, forming each other moment to moment. The fact that neither Maximo nor I are fluent in each other's language has meant that our lack of understanding has become a resource. This allows us to dramatise language as a living, tangible boundary and to experiment with how understanding can move regardless of language, in the simple actions of reaching across, of listening, of responding, and of speaking across a shared space, and of working through our artistic languages, because Maximo and I, having worked in shared exhibitions together, we've seen each other working, we've seen each other's work. And so when you know somebody through their work, it's another understanding of their language that goes beyond the verbal.
He rārangi I wainga I te wai I te kiri. He rārangi I wainga tau tinana I taku hoki. He rārangi I wainga I ngā motu maha.
La línea entre el tiempo de tu cuerpo y el tiempo de mi cuerpo. La línea entre estados nacionales. La línea entre la pureza y resistencia. La línea entre el migrante y el refugiado. La línea entre el primer mundo y el tercer mundo. La línea entre la hierba y la planta. La línea entre el norte global y el sur global. La línea entre bienvenida y rechazo. La línea entre propiedad y posesiones compartidas entre la marea y el mar. Velando un océano de piel hecho de distancia.
The line between migrant and refugee. The line between the first world and the third world. The line between weed and plant. The line between the global north and the global south. The line between welcome and rejection. The line between ownership and shared possession.
La línea entre bienvenida y rechazo. La línea entre propiedad y posesiones compartidas entre la marea y el mar.
When I arrived in Chile in September 2019 to work with Maximo to make work that we were going to travel to the States, he had an exhibition called Pedizzi, Suffer. And this exhibition, which was a solo show, it tracks the way toxicity can travel in a kind of terrestrial blooming. His concern spills from social decay to its relationship with ecological decay. Fungal spaces where values leak between area codes from the pattern of a language to the pattern of a cell. His research for this work centred on the imminent monumental loss of the Chilean Araucania tree, which is a national tree of Chile, and the way climate change has triggered the decay of the species. Max's work literally confronts us with diseased society by photographing the structures of the fungal disease destroying the tree in its petri dish, which he overlays with neon language evoking neoliberal power structures that feed the contagion of loss. While this exhibition was on, Chile's daily life was dramatically and suddenly untethered from itself by what Chileans called at the time the despertar social, or the la situación social, the waking up of Chile. This was a people's uprising, a resistance movement against economic and class repression, a saying no to neoliberal politics, a refusal to compromise with dictatorial powers and government, a demand for justice, and a demand for recognition of the human rights of all Chileans. It created an enormous sense of suspension of everyday life, with the sudden brutal presence of the military on the streets and epic violence against protesters sweeping the country. The people protested en masse, with 1 or 2 million people in the streets at a time. In the wake of this, I developed the following piece, El otro país que eres, the other country that you are. It was created as a kind of replacement, since the trio that Maximo and Maka and I were planning to make couldn't be made under the circumstances of the Chilean situation. Yet our collaboration and our solidarity with each other continued, but we couldn't get across the city anymore to see each other. They couldn't leave their families to travel to the States. So I ended up making a kind of solo with young dancer Ángel Garcia.
Your train was lost between
Tu tren se perdió entre lo singular y lo colectivo.
Each platform
Cada estación se presta para representar los significados de otros. Muchas vocales vienen de moretones interiores específicos. Pero este rugido de miles de cuerpos rehusándose es un tipo de postura violenta. Se despedaza mientras la herida se cierra. Es sorprendente cómo las bombas lacrimógenas se pueden ignorar en buena compañía. Sueños privados están cruzando los vecindarios como mareas bacterianas, pedazos de limón envalentonados, servicios públicos derretidos, celebraciones alucinógenas. La traducción del eterno compromiso a eternas olas de resistencia. País que tú eres. Este otro país que tú eres. Esas fuerzas bacterianas que se sienten como emociones y nos movilizan desconcertados por la corriente, tejiendo una red de rutas a través de una red de ciudades donde el cuerpo singular y el cuerpo colectivo están tan profundamente confundidos que ya no se pueden distinguir. El estado en que nos exhala el lugar, representamos a los demás. Nos preguntamos si la lógica de las balas ha formado nuestra gramática. Nos preguntamos si la lógica de las balas ha formado nuestra gramática, que ahora necesita atención médica urgente, de estudiantes médicos que usan uniformes médicos improvisados. Rompemos un poco el lenguaje con el sonido de sartenes y cucharas, llamándonos sin cesar, sin ataduras, juntos. Llamándonos sin cesar, sin ataduras, juntos.
Dando a luz en el fondo el significado de su identidad, ¿no? Luego está mezclado esto todo con el...
Las únicas palabras disponibles son producidas por este conjunto de profundas y singulares contusiones interiores. Las únicas palabras disponibles son producidas por este conjunto de profundas y singulares contusiones interiores. Esta particular organización de las venas.
Of interior bruises. This particular organization of veins.
Tu tren se escapó con todo el carbón. Dejó esta distancia intangible a su paso. Se fue una y otra vez. Siempre tarde. Una metonimia.
Always late. Always an autonomy. It left this extracellular punctuation, singular rules cross
la puntuación extracelular. Singulares reglas cruzan cada batallón, destinados a una aplicación errónea, a la desobediencia masiva, al guanaco y el zorrillo, queriendo que se ven tan lejos, como oleadas de solidaridad que rompen.
You couldn't ever prepare your heart for this. Epic sharing across the other countries. We all are.
Intercambio épico en todos los demás países en los que todos estamos.
Our project then developed its next iteration in March 2020 when COVID-19 suspended Max and I in our houses. We were both actually coincidentally supposed to be travelling to different parts of Sweden for residencies, and of course neither of us could travel. So we've created this website, which we've called Mapeo de Bordes Porosos, which explores issues around suspension and looks at the this time of lockdown and quarantine and the contagion of behaviours that are occurring in COVID-19, kind of from the point of view of El despertar de Chile, the waking up of Chile. So thinking about like the face mask and how in Chile face masks in March of this year became illegal. Piñera's government made them illegal because they were protecting the protesters from the tear gas. And of course now with COVID-19, suddenly everyone is required to wear a face mask. So the face mask is this paradoxical symbol. And we're thinking about the similarities between these movements that have brought the world to its knees and the contagion of behaviours of unprecedented expressions of what it is to be human. Of course, the untethering of everyday life from itself is something that is fascinating to look at between the two situations. So creatively, this has come together through a few different methods. So the first method was having conversations together. So here's one of our conversations where we are just starting to meet and chat. So we committed to having 2 conversations a week, just checking in with each other and hearing about what was going on between Chile and New Zealand, and also sharing language, sharing Spanish and English. So you can see here us trying to nut out our project, and you can see the kind of borderline of language
you
that we're
might
exploring.
say, did you have any thoughts? Or did you have any thoughts about our work?
Do you think any
Did
talk?
you have any thoughts?
Do you know? Do you have
Have
any talk?
thoughts.
Thoughts.
Wait, I have to thoughts. Think. Yeah, thoughts. Entiendo thoughts.
No, I don't know. This word is new for me.
Okay, this is your sentence to learn for your English language class. Do you have any thoughts about our work? So to think, pensar,
Okay.
thoughts
Do you
are like
have anything about our work?
Pensamientos.
¿Tú has pensado algo sobre nuestro trabajo?
Sí,
You repeat.
claro.
Tú, repite conmigo.
Sí.
¿Tú has pensado algo sobre nuestro trabajo?
It's too hard for me.
So we've had a bunch of different conversations around speaking across the oceans from Chile to Aotearoa in New Zealand that track the discussion of our project as it grows. And the next section is letters. We started to write each other letters, especially when we couldn't meet when we'd planned to. Various things would get in the way that would prevent us from meeting. So then we wrote letters in those spaces. And I have a section, Thinking Bacteria, Immunity and Resistance, that shows some of Max's photography from both the supermarket line, the Manifestación, the protests in Chile. And you can see this work of his that kind of explores the paradoxical symbol of the face mask. In Chile right now, it's super ironic for Chileans to be seeing the military and the police wearing face masks, because the face mask was a key symbol of the protesters who were trying to protect themselves from the tear gas. Yeah, so creating a website has been a nice way to be able to kind of archive and develop the creative language that's come through the project. And here we've got border writings. These writings were mostly written over 2017, 2018, 2019, when I was rehearsing with Max and Maka on the pieces that we presented in the Museum of Memory and Human Rights, and the various different iterations of our performances. So I've started to go through the archive and bring some of those rehearsal notes and writings into one place. I'm really interested in choreography and writing in the expanded field. So this time of working in this way, between the way that a website allows a multimodal presentation, has allowed me to really think about bringing together the different kinds of vocabulary that has emerged through our collaborative practice. So then the next part of our project is the post project, which is about sending objects through the post. As Max said, the idea is contact with different artists in different parts of the world. And we're thinking about bacteria, the necessity that bacteria travels. So the idea is to make these objects that are little envoys that go and literally test the borders. They will measure the time of COVID-19 in their precariousness and in their suspension. So like I posted an envelope to Max just to like have a first go at testing the border on about the 10th of April, and it should have arrived by now, but it could be another 6 months till it arrives. So we worked with Jeffrey Holdaway, my partner, who is a watercolourist, and made these envelopes that we're sending to artists in all the continents of the world. And it's a gift economy. So the idea is that each artist who receives the envelope contributes something and takes something. So they can keep anything they like, they add something in, and we digitize it as we go. Max has also made a map, a large world map. With the map project, each participant, it's like an exquisite corpse project, makes an intervention on the map and then sends it on. So we're kind of rewriting the map in this time of COVID-19 and seeing how long it takes for us to create physical contact with actual objects during this period. So we have a conversation here that you can see about the notion of what is urgent, what is important, and what is the role of artists in this time.
I think the work is also unitechnical, I don't know. What's the unitechnical? Difficult word, this.
Unethical. You think the work is unethical? Because of the danger, peligroso? The bacteria?
Yes, because noise, they're really prioritary, yes? In this moment, all thing is for priority. Priority is a priority.
Yeah.
Yeah. This work is intellectual, or artist intellectual work, but no is priority. And I have a little unetechnical.
Unethical.
Oh, it's really difficult. Untechnical.
No, you listen to me. Don't look at the word. Unethical.
Unethical.
The word is ethic. The ethic is like a good ethic is maybe to look after the dignity of the people, right? That's an ethical thing to do. But it is unethical to be sending art between countries when we should only be using the post as an essential service, not an intellectual service.
Yes. And this work, I think, is interesting too, because it's in the line, it's in the limited, it's in the border to ethical. Continue to think which other person and which new form to create to new form to communication. And the art in this moment is really good for this.
I think it's making a statement about the importance of art in this time. To say, actually, no, art is essential and art is crucial.
Yes.
And thinking about power at this time, which is something I was reading in your letter in Tu Carta, in your letter, you were talking about the importance of thinking about power now, and also of continuing life from before the virus now, continuing our work, continuing our relations, and continuing to really question power.
Yes.
It's really important.
Yeah. Because por eso also is important for me to take any precautions, any help.
Yes, precaution. Yes, to protect everybody who is involved in the project.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. In terms of the themes of artists connecting across time and space, you can see in these conversations between myself and Maximo that it's nearly impossible for us to communicate, and yet the attempt is the thing, just the continuation of a practice, the continuation of a conversation in the face of precariousness. Max always says, I'll see you tomorrow with my precarious English, in this precarious situation where we're both in quarantine and our lives have been upended, as have everybody's. And I really think about solidarity across arts communities, and I think there are some wonderful things happening with artists being aware of each other's practices in these times because the local has become so minimized. And I think doing just a little bit more than nothing can create something that brings great hope in these times of pandemic.